I always thought my family loved me just the same as they loved my older sister, Hannah. We weren't super close growing up, but I never imagined they'd turn me into a babysitter with no pay, no say, and no end in sight. It started off subtle. My mom asking if I could help out with Hannah's newborn while she ran errands. Then it turned into full days, then nights. Suddenly, I was skipping work, canceling plans, and living at my sister's place more than my own. All because family helps family, right? But it wasn't helping anymore. It was like I had become the default live-in nanny, without even being asked. No thank yous, no choice, just expected. And the worst part? Everyone acted like this was normal. My parents said it was my responsibility as the younger sibling. Hannah barely acknowledged how much she was relying on me. What they didn't realize was I was slowly drowning. My life, my goals, even my mental health were slipping away, and nobody seemed to notice or care. One night, after being guilt-tripped into staying over again, something inside me snapped. I knew I couldn't keep living this lie. So I made a decision that would shock my entire family. I disappeared. Not in a dramatic, movie-style way, but quietly. No warning. No note. I just left. What happened next? Let's just say the fallout was bigger than I ever imagined. You'd think they'd be mad, but what they did after I vanished was something I never saw coming. And it changed everything. I didn't go far, just enough to disappear from their radar. I turned off my phone, deleted my social media, and stayed with an old college friend in another city who owed me a favor. For the first time in months, I woke up without a crying baby in the next room or a guilt trip waiting over breakfast. It felt strange, but also like I could finally breathe again. My friend didn't ask too many questions, just gave me space, and I needed that more than anything. Meanwhile, I kept thinking about how things got so messed up. It wasn't like I hated my sister. Hannah and I were just different. She'd always been the golden child, good grades, married young, had the baby first. My parents adored her. I was the one who traveled, changed jobs a lot, didn't settle down. So maybe they thought I owed them stability by filling in where Hannah couldn't. But it wasn't fair. They treated her struggles like emergencies, and mine like distractions. Somewhere along the way, I stopped being their daughter and started being a solution. I wondered if they even noticed I was gone. Part of me hoped they did. Another part worried they might just shift blame, call me selfish, dramatic, unreliable. Maybe they'd spin a whole story about how I abandoned them. The thought made me feel sick, but also kind of numb. Was I really so invisible that walking away was this easy? But the real shock came about a week later. I checked my email out of habit, and there it was, a message from my mom. Just one line. "You need to come back. It's about Hannah. Something's happened." My heart dropped. I didn't know if it was real concern or just another trap. I stared at that email for what felt like an hour. It's about Hannah. That could mean anything. Was the baby okay? Was Hannah sick? Or was it just another way to drag me back in, playing on guilt because I'd finally drawn a line? My hands were literally shaking, and my gut told me not to reply. But my brain kept circling around the what-ifs. I didn't want to be the heartless sister who ran away if something serious had actually happened. So I replied just one word. What? The next email came fast. My mom said Hannah had been in some kind of breakdown. She'd stopped eating, barely slept, and refused to let anyone help with the baby. Apparently, my disappearing act had triggered it. According to my mom, I was the only one she trusts. That part hit me weird. Trust? She didn't even ask me how I felt when she dropped her whole life into my lap. And now I was supposed to swoop back in and fix everything? But something deeper started to bother me. Why had no one mentioned any of this before? If things were falling apart so badly, why was their first instinct to guilt-trip me instead of asking for help properly? I started to wonder if maybe this had all been building way before I left. Maybe Hannah had been struggling long before I showed up, and my parents had just been covering it up by using me as a bandage. It felt like more than just family dysfunction now. There was something off, something they weren't telling me. Still, I didn't answer. Not yet. I needed to figure out whether I was walking back into a crisis or being pulled back into a trap I barely escaped the first time. A few days passed and I still hadn't replied. I kept rereading my mom's message, wondering if it was honest concern or just another way to drag me back into the role I never agreed to. But then, something happened that I couldn't ignore. My old neighbor, someone who still lived on our street, messaged me on Facebook. She said she saw an ambulance outside my sister's house late at night. "Is everything okay?" she asked. My stomach dropped. This wasn't just guilt anymore. Something was really wrong. I called my friend into the room and read her the message out loud. She gave me a look that said exactly what I was thinking. If I didn't go back, and something serious happened, I'd never forgive myself. But if I did go back, what was I walking into? Would I just be thrown back into the same cycle? I felt trapped either way. I booked a bus ticket for the next morning. I didn't tell my mom, my dad, or Hannah. I needed to see things for myself before anyone could twist the truth. The entire ride I was spiraling. What if Hannah blamed me for everything? What if my parents tried to guilt me into staying again? Worse, what if they'd been hiding something even bigger than I imagined? When I finally arrived, I didn't go straight to the house. I stopped a block away and watched. The curtains were shut. No cars in the driveway. Everything felt still. Too still. I stood there frozen, unsure if I should knock, turn around, or call someone. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Another message from my mom. I opened it. Just a photo. Of Hannah. In a hospital gown. Eyes vacant. Holding the baby like she wasn't even there. My hands went cold the second I saw the photo. Hannah didn't even look like herself. Her face was pale, her eyes completely empty, and the way she held the baby. It was like she wasn't even aware she was holding anything at all. I couldn't breathe. I'd never seen her like that. And the worst part? My mom didn't include any explanation, just that image like it was supposed to speak for itself. Like it was some kind of silent demand, "Come back." Now. I started walking toward the house, heart pounding, when my phone buzzed again. Another message, but this time from an unknown number. "Don't trust them. You don't know the whole story." That stopped me cold. I looked around, half expecting someone to be watching me. No name, no context. Just those words. At first I thought it might be a sick joke. But something about the timing right after I saw the photo, it felt deliberate. I stood frozen on the sidewalk, trying to piece it all together. What wasn't I supposed to know? Had Hannah hurt herself? Had something happened with the baby? Were my parents hiding the truth from me? Again? It didn't help that growing up, they'd always controlled the narrative. Hannah was the delicate one, the one we all needed to protect. I was the strong one, the helper, the fixer. But now I was starting to realize, maybe I'd never been told the full story. I didn't go to the door. Instead, I turned and walked straight to the hospital. If Hannah was really there, I needed to hear things from her directly. But as soon as I reached the front desk and gave her name, the nurse looked confused. "She's not admitted here," she said. "She was discharged 3 days ago." I stared at the nurse, completely thrown off. "Are you sure?" I asked, my voice cracking. She double-checked. "Yes. She was discharged with family," she said, glancing at me like maybe I should have known that. I backed away slowly, trying to process what that meant. If Hannah wasn't in the hospital anymore, then where was she? And why had my mom just sent me that photo like it was happening now? Outside, I sat on the curb trying to steady my breathing. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about Hannah needing me. This was about control. My parents must have sent that picture late on purpose, knowing I'd come running without asking questions. And then I remembered the text. "Don't trust them." What if it was true? I called my mom. She answered immediately. Her voice was calm, too calm. "Where are you?" she asked. I didn't answer that. "Is Hannah okay?" I asked instead. There was a pause. "She's resting. You don't need to worry. Just come home, we need to talk." That's when I heard it. In the background, a baby crying. Then Hannah's voice, not tired, not distant, but angry. I said, "Give her back to me." It sounded like a struggle. Then the line went dead. Without thinking, I ran. I took a cab straight to my parents' house. When I got there, the door was wide open. Inside, the baby was in a stroller, unattended. My dad stood in the hallway, frozen, holding his phone. And Hannah, disheveled, furious, stood at the top of the stairs, pointing down at my mom. "She tried to have me committed," she said, breathless. "She took my baby while I was asleep and told the hospital I was unstable. She said you'd agree with her." And that's when I realized I had been the alibi. Everything clicked at once. The late-night ambulance. The photo. The guilt. It had all been part of my mom's plan. Not just to bring me back, but to make it seem like I'd support her if things ever went to court. She knew if anyone asked, they could say. Even her own sister thought she wasn't well. I was never meant to help. I was meant to confirm the story. I walked into the living room slowly, keeping my eyes on Hannah. She looked shaken but alert, like someone finally waking up from a nightmare. I turned to my mom, who was now sitting silently on the couch, like none of this was her doing. My dad just kept looking between us, completely lost, like he didn't know which version of the truth to believe. "I'm not part of this," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Whatever you're trying to do, it ends now." I looked at Hannah. "You're not alone. I see it now. I'm sorry I didn't sooner." That broke her. She started crying, not the kind of cry that asks for sympathy, but the kind that says thank you even without the words. I picked up the baby and handed her gently to Hannah. My mom didn't say a word. Maybe she knew the story had collapsed. In the weeks that followed, Hannah moved into a small apartment with some support, and we started rebuilding slowly. I went back to my life, but with boundaries this time. Real ones. I still help, but now it's a choice, not an expectation. And my relationship with my parents? Well, it's complicated. But I learned something big. Family doesn't mean sacrificing your own life to hold together someone else's lie. Sometimes walking away isn't selfish. It's survival.